Okay, well, it's great to be here in virtual Sevilla, and I'm going to talk today about evolving neural style transfer blend. I'm at Sensi Lab with John McCormack in Monash University, Melbourne, Australia, and the Game AI group at the School of Electronic Engineering and Computer Science at Queen Mary University, London. I'm also an independent iOS app developer, and I'm going to be talking about the research I've had to do in order to get an app almost to market in this paper today. Oh, hang on. Okay. So I'm just gonna, there we are, that's much better. So image filters, neural style transfer is basically image filters trained to produce pastiches of a given style, which can then be imposed on an unseen content image. They can work incredibly well, but often it's very poor, and you only ever see cherry-picked results in papers and on social media and so forth. The main idea is to use different layers of a pre-trained neural model to calculate the fitness of an image which you keep on improving. You want to really produce an image which is similar at the high level in terms of shapes and arrangement to the content image, and similar at the low level in terms of textures and patterns and colors to the style image. There have been 3 key breakthroughs which I cover in the paper, but the lowdown is that the first image I produced with style transfer 3 or 4 years ago took about 90 minutes on a CPU, and it's on the right there. It's a style from a fractal imposed onto a bit of game content. But now you can train neural models to run in milliseconds on an iPad, and they can embed multiple distinct styles, as we'll see. This really does work. If you look at the style images across the top and the content here, you'll see that it does indeed transfer the style in a certain way. And the blending does work. So you're allowed to, you can blend styles within a single model now. So this is a single trained neural model with 4 styles in the top 4 corners. And you can see you can interpolate over this picture of the lovely Brad to get the different styles out. Now, if you just read the papers on style transfer, you'll think that all people really want to do is produce nasty derivative pastiches. But the reality is that neural style transfer is absolutely part of artistic practice for many artists. This is an artist who is publishing their work on Hikek, an NFT platform, which I'm sure you've all heard about. And you can see the beautiful results there, not in any artist's particular pastiche style, but using textures and color palettes and patterns to produce beautiful imagery. Okay, my contribution to this field has been to develop an app called Style Done Quick. And this is a casual creator. I described casual creators in last year's Evo Musart. And they were having fun is more important than professional production. And that's what I'm trying to achieve with Style Done Quick, although this is more on the professional or more kind of controlled side. And I will just give you a demo of that. And if someone can tell me if they can hear the sound, that would be great. Here's a video of me demoing it. Okay, so this is a very brief introduction to Style Done Quick. We have here a picture of Colin Johnson, our glorious session chair, and I'm going to turn on the first layer, which shows you this kind of dot effect in bright colors. First thing we can do is change the grain. So you'll see that the stippling is getting bigger and smaller as I change the grain there. And we can change the overlay to be more or less. And we can change the type of the overlay. So here we do fusion, and it looks a little bit more photorealistic. The other thing we can do with layers is to change the composition of the styles within there.
Simon, I believe we lost the sound.
Change the nature of that there. See, it's drawing on his face. But I'll turn back on the first layer so we get this contrasting doodling on top. And finally, we can add in a texture effect, and this is making it look like it's been put on wood. So we're getting quite a nice effect there. We can change lighting, color, and saturation and contrast here and play around with it. There are a few other bells and whistles. For example, we can highlight the foreground and the background there of the face if we wanted to. What I'm looking at in this paper is presets, and I've populated this catalog of different presets. so that the user doesn't have to spend a long time playing around with layers and so forth. And if you tap on one of them, you get an instant effect. This is something similar to Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings, a little bit more pop art and line drawings and so forth. And again, once you've chosen one, you can go and play around with it in the editing screen as you see fit. And the question for the paper is, how do I generate these kind of presets so that the user gets a large variety while still getting a lot of quality? Okay, so you do get a lot of value out of the ability to train different styles inside the same model, and you can interpolate between them. So I managed to get the kind of grain effect going from large scale to small scale patterning by training each model with 2 styles at different scales. And you can see I've achieved that with the picture at the top there, and you can interpolate between them. And if you embed 4, 5, 6 different models in styles in a model, then you can interpolate between them. And I've shown the interpolation there in the second set of images. I've trained about 1,000, played around with them. Most of them don't work. Style transfer barely ever works, let's be clear. And if you're trying to get 6 working at the same time in one model, it's even more difficult. But I have been able to extract 43 different neuromodels, which are all inside that app. And they include 6 styles at 2 different grains. So you get 12 different styles per model. And yes, as I've said, someone's typing. If you want to turn your microphone on mute, that would help. Sorry about that. So you can merge these styles as you see fit, and that's what we've got in the app. No one seems to be doing overlays, good old-fashioned graphics, but if you do different overlays, you can pick up the original colors of the original image if you want, or you can get, if you use multiply overlay, then you get kind of more photorealistic. It looks in the third image there that someone's actually drawn on that person's face rather than produce a stylized image of her. So you can have up to 5 layers overlaid in 3 different ways, and there's an alpha channel for each one, so you can have more or less of it showing through. And you can change the brightness, contrast, and saturation for each layer. So this brings us to the situation where we can describe a style transfer blend as basically what is achievable in the Style Done Quick app. So up to 5 layers with a weighting of each of 6 styles in each layer expressed, overlaid in 3 ways with saturation, brightness, and contrast changes to the final image for the purpose of this paper. So we are enabled to define our chromosome as having a model M, a grain in terms of the detail or the size of the pattern being applied, G, then 6 style weightings, S1 to S6, the alpha of the amount of overlay, and the OT, which is the overlay type, whether luminescent, multiply, or a top. And then because we've got these 5 different layers, we can have a genome consisting of, a genotype consisting of 5 chromosomes plus a brightness, contrast, and saturation level. The Casual Creator aim is to enable users to employ preset images without all of that fiddly editing, so they can just click and go and get lovely images, which is basically what all the other style transfer apps on iPhone and iPad and Android devices do. You don't normally get this kind of fine-grained control. And the research question is, how can we automatically generate those style transfer blends? And the answer I came up with was to use Mappily, which is quite a well-known, although fairly recent technique. So we want to get high quality stylistic image filters, but we want to provide users with a large range of different styles, and we have fear of missing out. We want to sample the biggest possibility of space as we can in order to see what's out there. So really what we're looking for is a quality diversity, or a QD search. And do check out the literature on QD search if you've not already done so. It's a really very useful approach. For Mappily approaches, you maintain numerous cells in an archive, which is sometimes called niches, and you can have at most at any one time 1 artifact which has been generated put into each cell. Then a calculation based on the phenotype of a generated artifact dictates which cell it could belong to. And a generated artifact will only replace the current occupant in a cell if it has higher fitness. So this is similar to evolutionary search, but you're not trying to evolve purely towards a fitness. You're trying to evolve a diverse population at the same time as raising the fitness of all of that population. So we do the usual things, which is a random genotype generation to start with. Then we can have crossover and mutation of the artifacts in the cells to generate offspring later. In our case, the artifacts are image filters, but to assess those image filters, we pass a content image through them in order to be able to analyze the image rather than the filter itself. So the first question is, how do we place an image and therefore the filter producing it into a cell? So to solve this, I used the ResNet neural model for machine vision, and I produced 1,000 randomly generated style blends, then applied each of them to 10 representative images covering things like faces, cityscapes, landscapes, that kind of thing. So I passed those 10,000 images through a headless ResNet model, and that basically calculates 2,048 features as a large vector. For each of the features, we calculated and stored the mean mu and the standard deviation sigma over all of these 10,000 images. And then we performed principal component analysis on the features and looked at the first 10 components, which are meant to describe the images, but also do so in an orthogonal way. And from that, we extracted the 4 most highly weighted ResNet features. So of these 2,048 features that ResNet can calculate, we extracted the 4 most useful in terms of differentiating the images, which were orthogonal. And so that enabled us to calculate the distance from the mean for each of the features for a given image. So we get 4 distances from the mean, and we discretize those features into one of 5 bins. And then that gives us a signature for the image. And the calculation there is that you've got 5 bins, we've got 4 bins, all with 5 discrete places in them. So that gives you 5 to the 4, which is 625 different cells. So if you generate 625 different artifacts or images, then if they're put into these different cells, then they will all look slightly different. And I did have a good look. I generated lots, put them into various bins, played around a lot, and it does indeed differentiate images quite nicely. So the cells work pretty well. So mutation and crossover. So the first thing to know is that random generation is exactly how you'd imagine it. 1 to 5 chromosomes, i.e. layers, and then random weights for each of the style in each layer's model, followed by a random brightness, contrast, and saturation effect at the end. I tried 4 different mutation approaches, changing the layer to take all randomly chosen chromosomes from the genome and swap them for randomly generated ones. If you can focus more precisely on a particular chromosome and then mutate the weights for the 6 different styles in it, and remembering that they all have to add up to 1. So you do a bit of a calculation there. Another mutation is to change the overlay type for some of the chromosomes randomly chosen. And finally, we can alter the brightness, contrast, and saturation as a mutation at the end. And you can do this once or twice. Of course, you can do it as many times as you want, but I played around with mutation rates 1 and 2. I also implemented crossover so that you take P chromosomes from the start of parent 1 and Q chromosomes from the end of parent 2, so that P is greater than 1, Q is greater than 1, and P plus Q is less than or equal to 5. By taking them from both ends, that preserves the kind of ordering and the strong effect of the filters at the start and the weak effect of the effects of the filters at the end. So that seemed to work quite well as well. So what I did was I ran different Mappily sessions with different fitness functions so that each fitness function focuses the search. So I know what I'm going to get in the whole, yet because of the Mappily archiving, I get a diverse set of stylization filters for each of the different sessions that I run. So basically, to calculate the fitness, you start with a content image, let's say the normal picture of Brad Pitt, and then you have a target filtered version of it, which we call T. And then a stylization filter, that's what we're trying to assess the fitness of, which we will call F, which has been applied to an image, and that's what we call the stylized image F. Then the filter fitness is calculated as the reciprocal of the Euclidean distance between the headless ResNet vector for the filtered version F and the target stylized image T. So basically, you want to have images which look more and more like the filtered version of the target content image. So with Mappily, you don't have to have a selection mechanism. You can basically randomly choose a cell, mutate it, and then find the cell that the mutated version should belong to, and place it in that cell if it's higher fitness than the current occupant. But I did play around with 3 different mechanisms. The first mechanism chooses a cell randomly, and with probability 1 will mutate it. The second mechanism takes the reciprocal of the distance between the signature of the target image and the signature of the genome image E, so that basically you're trying to get, you're choosing more often to mutate images which look already closer to the target image. And mechanism 3 is very similar, which is a score selection. So basically you rank all the cells in your archive, and you've got A of them, and you mutate with a probability of K over A, where K is the rank of the cells. So basically, again, cells which are doing well because they're ranked highly get more probability of being mutated than cells which are not doing well. Okay, so we ran a series of sessions where we took good old Brad Pitt again. He is the doyen of style transfer. And we chose 2 images of him and found 10 stylized versions of each from the internet. So I had a lovely afternoon trolling the internet to try and find people who have painted Brad Pitt, like the first image in the top there, and also people who have image filtered Brad Pitt, sometimes using style transfer, of course. So we had these 10 different pairs of target and stylization of them. I played around with lots of different evolutionary setups and studied 22 of them in a kind of incremental way, all on my iPad Pro. And I tested them out by generating 1,000 random filters to start with and populating the archive in that way. And in another way, I seeded the archive by generating all 3,888 single layer filters to also seed the archive, which worked better actually. They actually take roughly the same amount of time because 1,000 random filters have more than 1 layer, up to 3 layers. In fact, sorry, up to 5 layers. And the 3,888 only have 1 layer, so there's only 1 image filter being applied there. So actually you get more for your money really by seeding the archive in an exhaustive way. And then after the seeding, you get 2,000 mutation and crossover steps with the particular setup that you've got for your evolutionary search. And then you compare against what you would have got if you've got 3,000 random generations in terms of both the average fitness, how close it looks to the stylized version of Brad Pitt, and the diversity, which is the number of populated cells. What you really want is very fit individuals in every cell, although that's not very possible, not very easy, because lots of the cells shouldn't contain images which actually look like the stylized one. And we experimented to find the best setup in terms of quality and diversity. Here is a wall of bar graph, but basically the take home is that this search setup here found 374 different cells to be populated. So that's quite diverse. That's more than half the possibilities, and improved the fitness of the individuals by 10.08%. There are better in terms of fitness. There's one better in terms of fitness, and there's one better in terms of diversity, but this achieved both. So that is the one that we took forward for further experimentation. So the findings of these experiments were that crossover and mutation outperform mutation only. Exhaustive seeding produces more diverse final population than the random seeding. And it's possible to achieve up to 10% increase on fitness. I was hoping for better, but ultimately the fitness is pretty good with random anyway. And you get 85% increase in diversity. So that's also very important. The best balanced setup used an exhaustive seeding, crossover with score selection, as described earlier, and a mutation rate of 2. And I chose the second best for both quality and diversity to take forward into a final set of experiments. So I had this idea that we can run multiple archives at the same time and populate them because you've got low storage requirements but long processing time. So it made sense to do this. I'm going to skip through the details, but basically you generate images for one archive and you see if they fit in another archive. There's a low chance of that happening, but not a zero chance of that happening. Do see the paper for details as I'm running out of time in this talk. Here are some of the results in terms of the fitness. This is one of the 2 experiments to generate Brad Pitt-like, or filters which can produce similar images to the stylized Brad Pitt image. And you can see that on the whole, they're producing filters which do produce images a bit like the target. Certainly in some cases it's pretty close, in others it's less close. What's not shown on this diagram is that once you go past the top 10, you get more and more and more diversity. So the output from these archives is actually fit at the top, and you can choose the ones that really achieve what you were trying to achieve, but you get loads of diversity to have a look through. So your fear of missing out is massively lowered by the diversity of the archives in general. The other key finding was that the many archive approach wins. It's not spectacularly better, but ultimately it's better to run one many archive search than multiple single archive searches, because it's just a hassle to run all of those searches. And you do get an improvement. All of the dark green boxes there are above the light green boxes, so that shows an improvement, with one exception, which is very close anyway. So it is definitely worth doing this multi-archive approach to Mappily, which may well work in other domains, of course. Okay, to conclude, we've derived a good Mappily setup to control the search over a complex space of style transfer blends, and that does achieve quality and diversity. And that's enabled me to start populating these preset filters for Style Done Quick. We innovated a little bit with Mappily by choosing image signatures to put them into the cells, and the many archive Mappily can actually improve matters in terms of logistics and the quality and diversity, but not hugely. To finish, just to point out that I'm going to undertake loads more of these Mappily search now with very targeted fitness target images in order to really populate meaningful categories of stylization presets. We're going to enable the saving of these style filters as presets, so you can apply them to any image. And we're going to play around with more fun things like liquefying images like the Brad Pitt image at the bottom there, which is a lot more fun. And I'm hoping to release it in summer 2021. So thanks for listening. Do watch this space. I'm Simon G. Colton on Twitter, and you'll be able to keep up with this on artdonequick.com. Thank you very much.